Welcome to Take 5 for Torah. Today is May 27th, and we are doing the Tuesday edition, which is a chapter of Shmuel Aleph. And this week is chapter 5. If you recall, last week we spoke about the Aron, the Holy Ark, which was captured by the Plishtim, by the Philistines who felt that they conquered the God of Israel by capturing their Holy Ark. They were at first extremely scared that the Jews took that ark. It already had a reputation that we know from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And the Philistines said, let's be strong and perhaps our gods will save us from this powerful God. And of course, God is more powerful than whatever the Philistines can put together. But the Aron, which does wield great power, is nothing but a box of gold and wood in the face of the despicable behavior of the sons of Eli. So the Philistines did capture the ark, and that ark brought a ton of hurt to the Philistines. The description of what happened to them sounds a lot like what happened to the Egyptians, because they wouldn't send out the Israelites by the command of Moshe. And the description of what they suffered is either, they say, the Septuagint calls mice, a lot of mice running around inside their bodies, inside the crevices of their bodies. Some English translations read what they got was hemorrhoids. Be it as it may, it was so bad that the Philistines just decided, we've had enough trouble from this God. Let's just take this ark, let's just pack it up and give it back to them, and maybe we'll make some kind of a gift out of it. And what happened as they moved into this direction was that their god, which was called Dagon, some commentaries say that because the Philistines lived near the coast in what's now Gaza, that their god was in the form of a fish. Maybe you have that picture from the movie Samson and Delilah, that big fish god that came crashing down when Shimshon pushed apart the columns upon which it was sitting. And that fish god, Dagon, kept falling right in front of the Ark of the Covenant. And the hands of the fish had these hands sticking out, not fins, but hands, were separated from the god. And it kept happening, and the Philistines said, oh, it must be just an earthquake. It must be just a tremor. It must be just an accident. It's amazing. Someone who's foolish enough to worship a fish god will be foolish enough not to see the obvious sign that the true God is not happy with what you're doing with his ark. In fact, there's a discussion in the Talmud about nullifying idolatry. You see, if we own a piece of idolatry, we can derive benefit from it if the person who worshipped it, or any other Gentile for that matter, nullified it. You mevatel by breaking off a piece of the nose, a piece of the ear, or you dent it, and you say, I don't worship this God anymore. It's not helping me. Right? So if the Gentile himself nullifies it, it no longer is considered avodah zarah. It's no longer considered idolatry. However, the Talmud asks the question, what happens if not a Gentile was the one who nullified it? It fell off its mantle, an earthquake or something. It just fell off and broke. So Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish both dispute this. One saying, well, if it fell off and broke, it's the same as if a Gentile nullified it. The other one says, no, we see from this story, like I just said, if someone is foolish enough to worship an idol, to worship a graven image, then he's also foolish enough not to recognize the sign of what was obviously happening here. But after all the hemorrhoids and after all the mice, they just said, it's enough. We've had it. Let's send this ark back. And it's a very short chapter. It's one of the shortest chapters in the entire book of Sefer Shmuel. And they decided that we're going to send this back. And the next chapter, which we'll do next week, describes how they sent it back with an ingenious plan to determine further whether everything that happened to us and that happened to our God, bowing down, as it were, to this ark, if everything happened by happenstance again, or maybe it was actually the workings of their God. They needed still more proof to be shown the folly of their ways And as God often has the habit of doing, to show people the folly of their ways over time, but it still has to be done with our free will to determine to do the right thing. And that's what we'll see next week in Take 5 on the Tuesday edition of Shmuel Aleph.